Good
Good
morning,
morning.
everyone there.
How are you,
Good evening
Geshe?
there. Good morning, everyone. I'm good, good. So far, good.
So far, so good.
Next moment, I don't know. Yeah.
So, thank you so much for coming along, Geshe, and thank you everybody for rejoining our second of the 3 teachings with Geshe Thubten today. So we'll have the talk with Geshe, and then a short little intermission, and then Geshe will lead a meditation. And after the meditation, there'll be a chance for questions, which you can either type into the chat or you can wave your hand at me and ask in person. It's really nice if you can keep your video on, just so Geshe can see that there is somebody there. Across our interwebs, our webs of fiber optics and our webs of light. Geshe, we would like to start with offering a mandala, and also we start all of our special events here with a acknowledgement of country. So acknowledging that the land where Langri Tangpa Sena actually resides in Brisbane, Australia, is on the Jagera and Turrbal people's land, the traditional custodians of this land. And so we pay our respects to all elders past, present and emerging, and seek to live harmoniously with all the beings seen and unseen on this land and make it a holy place. Then the mandala offering. So those of you who have a mandala or a mala, something to offer, even if you just offer your watch, because who doesn't need more time? Then so that from our side, the teachings come out well and we create the merit, we can offer a mandala. Joshim etom tram ravlinji nide padim sange jindu mite owan yidrogunandan Shin la cho pai shon, Jesun lama, Tangpa kienan, Ki chu kala, Kien se chu zin tri, Jita sanpe, Toi jezima, La shaya chaki chapa waptu so idam gururana mandala kamni atayami. Please accept this mandala, Geshe. And I have the refuge and bodhicitta prayers. If you would please lead us in these preliminary prayers.
Okay. So before we recite the refuge and bodhicitta prayer 3 times, try to generate a bodhicitta motivation, thinking, may our coming here together become cause and condition to cultivate the awakened mind of bodhicitta and wisdom relies on the ultimate truth. And may this teaching inspire us to transform whatever challenges, difficulties, problem that we face in our life, to transform into the path. And may it become cause and condition to obtain precious, fully enlightened state, so we can be greatest help and benefit to each and every sentient beings, including oneself. Okay, so then we do the refuge in bodhicitta.
Sangye charan sogye chanam lai chanchoi badui dani kapsui chi tagi chenye gepe sonam gi chola panje sangye dropai shoi Sangye charan sogye chanam lai chanchoi badui dani kapsui chi Tagi chenye gepe sonam gi chola panje sangye dropai shon. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings.
So good morning, everyone. And again, thank you very much for joining this morning. And so, for this 3 weeks, we'll be discussing on the 8 verses of mind training, which is one of the very root texts for many others mind training, other many mind training texts and writing. And so in regard to that, I think we discussed about the first verses last week. We completed the first verses where we try to, generate a sense of through meditation and contemplating that how each and every sentient beings is even more precious than wish fulfilling jewel in terms of through their contributions, through their kindness, providing us to achieve temporary and ultimate happiness, especially the ultimate happiness of fully enlightenment, depend on other sentient beings. And by that understanding and realizations, and through that kind of training, meditating, then trying to generate a strong sense of feeling of preciousness of each and every sentient beings, feeling of them very dear, each and every sentient beings, and by having feeling that each and every sentient being is precious and dear, then it allows us to cultivate love, compassion, bodhicitta towards all sentient beings. And once we have that sense of feeling of love, compassion, bodhicitta mind, then even when we have some disagreement, then we will have a better way to communicate and better way to solve the problems and the differences without any kind of hard feeling and ill will feelings. So in second verses today we will so we'll start with the second verses, and the second verses is a so that is the first verses, and second verses deal with training our mind to crush sense of self-importance, thinking that we are better than others, because that is kind of obstacle to develop respect, love, and compassion to others. When we have that kind of feeling of, I am more superior, I'm better than others, then we tend to have belittling others, belittling others and putting down on others, and not having sense of respect. And that is one of the problem in our, even in our ordinary life. When you don't have respect, then we can't have a good relationship. Then we cannot have a good conversations. And that is where all the conflict arises within the human beings when we try to become disrespectful to each others. Sometimes it's not about the differences. Is how you present your different views, whether you present it with respectfully or whether you represent disrespectfully, treating the others as a, foolish, stupid, ignorance, or you can present same different view with the respect, that person's is also, not ignorance, not stupid, but that they know a lot of subject, a lot of things more than ourselves in many areas. But of course, in certain area, we might have differences, so, and once you have that kind of, when you treat the others with such a respect, then we can discuss the differences much more easily, when someone feel, even though they don't agree with you, but they respect you, then you have a sense of respect for that also person also, even though you might not respect the view. But, and so I think that is very important, even in our ordinary world, in our relationship with anyone, and especially to develop, bodhicitta mind. There is no way we can develop true love, compassion, and bodhicitta mind unless we have respect for others. Unless we have respect for others. And so that is the second line. That second line deal with that particular subjects. Okay, so maybe can we read it? Yeah. So when in the company of others, so wherever and whenever, and with whomever we are in company, sometimes we are in companies of our senior ones, our boss, or sometimes we are in company of our colleague, or, someone, your friend, someone you have conflict, someone, stranger, whatever the different position, status, whatever relationship we might have or might not have, whenever we're in companion of any other beings, I shall always consider myself as the Lord of all. In some, they translate it as less than others, but it is I think when you say Lords of all, I think it is a little more stronger, it is much more, it is more stronger word and also stronger practice, I think, or myself less than others. And from the depth of my heart, hold others dear and supreme, So that is what we try to train ourselves all the time, The conflict arises a lot of time because, I feel I'm more supreme than others. Other person feel they are more supreme than ourselves. I think I know better than you, and other person think they know better than you. And that is where the conflict comes. That is where the conflict comes, The other things, they are more intelligent and we are more ignorant. And we think we are more intelligent and they are more ignorant. So when we have this grasping that we are more better and superior than others, that is when we tend to have this feeling of kind of belittling them, others, looking down on others, putting down on others in certain way. Sometimes we might do quite obviously, sometimes we might do very subtly, in a very subtle way. And when you start doing that, the other person will feel that. will feel that. Once they feel that, even they have some respect before that, they will lose their respect to you. When someone started to treat someone that way, then other person, will not have the same respect they had before. When you started to treat them with that kind of, looking down and belittling them and all of that, And so then when someone feel hurt because of that kind of disrespectful behavior, attitude, when they feel hurt, then they will respond with that feeling of hurt. And when someone responds with feeling of hurt, it is not always going to be a nice one, And they react or they respond in that way because they feel hurt by our attitude and behavior or disrespectful, And so therefore, when you hurt someone, it goes against loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind. When we try to develop loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, we try to help them, not to hurt them. We try to generate those attitude or thoughts or feeling to help them, not to hurt them. And so it is the opposite of what we are trying to achieve. So for a Mahayana practitioner, a bodhisattva, someone who is trying to be on the bodhisattva path, such kind of attitude and behavior are obstacles. And so how can we overcome such feeling of, arrogant? The feeling of arrogant and self-important, because that is obstacle of spiritual path, and it hurts others' feelings. And so the moment we change our perspective, instead of thinking, I'm more superior than you, we started to change that attitude and perspective and say, feel they are the more supreme than myself. I'm less than them. I'm lower than them. The moment you think it, then there is no space to feel you are superior. There's no space for arrogant, and there's no space to treat others disrespectfully because of such arrogance and self-importance. And therefore, we don't hurt others. We don't hurt others. And if they don't get hurt, they will not respond also in a hurtful way that hurt us. So, so therefore we create more peaceful environment where we don't hurt each other. And also we create a space to feel love, compassion to them, space to feel respect to others. And so that is where the training comes here, and, if we look from one point of view, every sentient beings, every human beings, every sentient beings have their own unique qualities that we don't have. Everyone has their own specialty, unique, positive uniqueness, qualities that we don't possess. From that point of view, from that perspective, you can hold them as supreme and ourselves less than them. There is always, it's not just kind of making your mind, just making up to feel yourself lower than others supreme, but there is always, some qualities, unique qualities within each and every sentient being, unique by their own unique positive qualities that they have that we don't have. From that perspective, from that perspective, because they have something positive quality that we don't possess, and they have, we don't have. From that perspective, then we can become, we are less than them from that point of view, that perspective. And from that perspective, then we try to kind of practice that, you know. And the moment we're able to see, you know, all the problem, I think, you know, in our world is clashes of egos, you know. The conflict we have in human beings, among human beings, is clashes of ego. We don't have that much conflict with our animal, do we? Because there is no clashes with ego, because the animal, our pet, doesn't show that ego. You know, they don't argue with you. They don't say they're not better than you. They don't show that they are better than you, you know. And that is why it's easy for us to feel love and compassion for them, isn't it? Even when you are not happy, unhappy, even when you are kind of, you know, because they did something wrong, you know, and even you are kind of trying to say something in their tail, you know, like that, and trying to calm, you know. So then you don't see any ego in them, and that is why you love about them. You know, that's why we love the animals so much, and we have conflict with human beings. We have problem with human beings. We don't have problem with our pets, animals. That is it. Because human beings, not only ourselves, they also have ego. So they show that ego. And when they show their ego, we don't like it. And when we show our ego, they don't like it. And it's a clashes of two egos. That is why we have problem and conflict with human beings more than our pets. You know, I meet so many people, you know, who are, you know, so dedicated for the animals, you know. But when it comes to human being, they have allergy. Big allergy, you know, when it comes to the human beings. They have a big problem with the human beings, you know. And if you really think about it, it is because of the clashes of two egos. So by practicing, by meditating, and by training and practicing according to this verse, in second verse, it helps us to crush our ego. It helps us to crush our ego, where our ego thinks, I'm better, I'm supreme. No. And if we have less ego, or if we don't have ego, then we wouldn't have all these problems. You know, we wouldn't have those problems. We wouldn't have those kind of clashes, those kind of conflict. We can have much more better relationship with any human beings. It's due to our ego that makes it difficult for us to have better relationship with other human beings. And so therefore, this practice, if we can apply, and if we can really contemplate and really practice, you know, it will make huge difference in the way we interact with others, our communication with others, the way we interact with others, our relationship will be much more better, and, you know, we will have less pain, less problems, you know. Even someone, you know, treat you quite a little bit kind of an unkind way, you will not feel so hurt. You will not feel so hurt. If you don't feel hurt, you don't have to experience the pain. You know, someone might not be so nice to you. Someone might not be so kind to you because of the certain behavior, certain attitude. But, you know, it doesn't hurt you because you have no ego, you know, or you have less ego, it hurt less. And if you don't get hurt, then, you know, if you don't get hurt, then you don't have to experience the pain. And if you don't have that egoistic mind, then definitely, you know, it will be much more easier to feel love, compassion. So I think maybe with that, maybe we kind of, I think maybe we just, because we have to go through 8 verses, okay? And then, yeah, then maybe we can, third verses is, you know, third verses is a training in our mind to be mindful of all the time, you know, training our mind, training to be mindful all the time, watching our mind all the time. Because, you know, whenever any afflictive emotions arises, whatever form of afflictive emotions, such as or egoistic mind, you know, a lot of time we are not even aware that we are in that state of mind. And if we are more aware, if we are more mindful, if we are aware of that, the moment we realize, oh, I'm angry, or my mind angry is arising. The moment I arise, the moment I recognize my anger arises, you know, I will try to deal with that. Oh, anger arises, therefore I have to be more watchful, careful. Oh, my strong, you know, strong attachments arises, I have to be more mindful, I have to watch it. Oh, my ego arises, so that is why I'm feeling that way. You know, so it helps us to actually bring back to ourselves instead of focus on others. Do you get it? At the moment, a lot of time, whenever there is some problems, conflict, our mind goes immediately outside towards others. It's hard to really look inside. But when we are more mindful, then we are aware of whatever, you know, our mind is disturbed by whatever negative emotions that is arising, afflicting emotions. And then once you become aware of that, then you start to pay more attention to that, trying to work with that. And once you start to work with that, then the situation will improve, change, better, for betterness, you know. And if we have a strong mindfulness practice, you know, we might even be able to aware even before those afflictive emotion arises. The moment is conditions are coming together to give rise to one of those afflictive emotions. You are aware of that, then they stop creating those conditions that give rise to the afflictive emotions that arises. You know, so yeah, so that is the training here. Yeah, can we have the third verses? Yeah. Vigilant the moment that delusions appear in my mind, you know. The moment delusions appear in my mind, or even before the delusion arises, you can also be vigilant and mindful. And once those delusions or afflictive emotions, such as anger, you know, hatred, resentment, you know, strong attachment, greediness, ignorance, whenever they appear in our mind, endangering myself and others. Those afflictive emotion, delusion, endanger ourselves and others. They bring suffering and pain to ourselves and others. You can see it's clear when we have anger, resentment, how we destroy our peaceful mind, how we destroy our calm mind, how we destroy our peaceful life. Your mind started with you, when we have those emotions. And once your mind is kind of agitated, then, when when we interact with others, then our interactions is also not peaceful, gentle, and calm. It becomes more aggressive because our state of mind is an aggressive state of mind. So therefore, because our attitude, our mind is an aggressive state of mind. So therefore, our interactions, our behavior come in some way of some form of aggressions. Sometimes it can come in a very, very subtle way. It might come in very subtle way. Sometimes it's obvious. The aggression is very obvious with your physical behavior, your speech, and your thoughts. But sometimes, we try to kind of not do it very obviously, but there is kind of subtle aggressions. And that comes because our mind is such a state of mind, such state, And so therefore, it endangers you and it endangers others. You put yourself in danger and you put others in dangers for more violence, more aggressions. For example, when you are being kind of overpowered by such delusion, such as strong anger. And same thing, when you have strong attachment, it endangers you, endangers others. A lot of time, a lot of anger arises because of attachments. Jealousy arises because of the attachments. Sense of competitiveness arises because of the attachments. And when you are in state of competitiveness, when we are in state of jealousy, when we are in state of that, then, again, there is we put ourselves in danger and we put others in the dangers, And of course, all of those attachments, anger arises from the fundamental ignorance. And therefore, that is the very root of all these other delusions. And so therefore, when you have that fundamental ignorance, then there is always the potential for any moment to arising of any of other delusions, such as anger and attachments. And therefore, there's always the potential to put ourselves in danger and others in danger. Therefore, by understanding that, how those delusions put ourselves and others in danger, therefore, whenever they arises, we try to be aware of that through the mindfulness, vigilant, and without any delay, we try to confront it. We try to avert it. We try to overcome it as soon as possible, without any delay. So that is the practice here is saying, Yeah, well, I shall confront and avert it without any delay. So Of course, how to confront it, how to avert it, there are many different methods, many different practice, many different meditations. And we try to apply whatever that particular method, particular meditations that you find more effective, helpful, there are many different forms of practice meditation, Of course, there is from the one practice meditation is, through the practice of mindfulness, being aware of that. If any afflictive emotion delusion arises, through your mindfulness, being aware of that, recognizing that, oh, that delusions, that afflictive emotions arises. Being aware of that, but not engaging in it. You are being aware that it arises, but not trying to involve with that, not engaging in that. Simply just being aware of that through the mindfulness. And if you don't engage in that thoughts or that, because all the delusions are concept thoughts. So if you don't engage in those thoughts, those delusions, then it does not last. It does not last. Because you see all these different emotions are momentary. It's just a momentary. It's a second. It's like 1 second. But if it's that 1 second, how does that, I feel angry today, my whole day. I don't feel like it's a second. It feels like that I have whole day, or for a whole week, or for a whole month, or for a whole year, or maybe for whole lifetime. It doesn't seem like it is a momentary. Well, it lasts long because we keep on engaging with that thoughts. We keep on getting involved with that thought. We keep on giving fuel to that anger. It's like we keep on putting more and more wood to the fire. First, you start with the fire with the one wood. If you don't stop putting more wood, it will extinguish after some time. But if you keep on adding the wood, then of course it will last as much as you keep on putting the wood. Same thing, same thing. Due to certain cause and conditions, certain delusion, afflictive emotion arises. And then there's a endless chain or waves of thoughts, after thought after thought, after thought after thought, that give the fuels for that feelings, emotion to continue. Like putting if you stop doing that, but just merely being aware through mindfulness, then it will stop in a moment and it will not continue. And so that is one way of dealing with that. That is one way of dealing with that. One way of dealing with that. One way of dealing with that. We don't have to struggle. We don't have to struggle with that afflictive emotions, trying to fight with it, but instead just being aware and not engaging with it. Sometimes you see, certain animals, when they see you, when you engage it, then they become aggressive. But you see them, you are aware and you don't engage with them, you just keep on moving, and they also keep on moving themselves. There's no conflict. And same thing without those thoughts, emotions, and those negative emotions, it comes, goes, it comes and goes. It doesn't last much if we don't engage with that thoughts. So it's learning, just to be aware, just to be mindful, aware, and not engaging with that. That is one way of dealing with that. Okay, with the and another way of doing is, if you have a good practice of, being able to focus well on the breath or any kind of objects, when those emotions arise, you just go to that breath, you just focus on the breath. Or it could be any other objects that you are used to focus on, whatever object you can focus strongly. So you try to bring your mind back to that. For example, one example, washing your breath. So you just come to the breath and you just kind of wash and count the breath. So your mind get distracted from that, whatever anger, attachments, whatever delusion it arises, your mind get distracted from that. And so your mind don't get engaged with that. And therefore it stops. It diminishes. So it doesn't last when you are able to come back to the breath. And to do that, of course, we need to have strong mindfulness and vigilance. And there is one Tangpa masters, probably many of you might have heard his story, Geshe Thubten, Geshe Thubten, one of the Tangpa master, in his early life, he was kind of well-known, kind of robber, bandit, people are scared of him, but later, he embraced the Dharma, and especially he focused on practicing the lojong and those teachings. He embraced the Dharma, and he applied those Dharma in his everyday life, not only during the meditations, but also everyday life. There are some, kind of nice stories. I mean, I don't know whether, okay, I think one story, I think there are many stories of him, how he applied. One of the stories, he was invited by one family in the village to do some prayers, some ceremony, some prayers. So he went to the family of that in the village to do the prayer ceremony that he requested. But because he has been stealing and robber for his whole previous life for so many years, the habit is still there, The habit is still there, strong habit. So the moment he saw the families are not in the room, he saw many, tea, in the old time in Tibet, they used to have leaf teas that, what do you call, what do you call?
I think it's like a brick of tea.
Brick, yeah, thank you. Brick, the brick tea, So he started to take his hand, go into the bag to take one of that and put in his pocket, because of his previous habit. But immediately his mindfulness was aware of that, oh, I'm not supposed to steal, now I'm stealing. Immediately his mindfulness came and he was aware that he's stealing. Immediately, he hold his right hand to the left hand, or left hand to the right hand, which is in the back, and he shouted, there is a thief in the house, there is a thief in the house. The family came running and see, I don't see any thief, where is the thief? And he pointed the hand, here, this is the thief. Here, this is the thief, So that is, there are many stories like that, how he applied immediately through the mindfulness and awareness, immediately kind of, And there are many stories like that, how he, and I wanted to say that story because I wanted to use one quotation from him in relation to this practice. And he said, you know, I have no other practice. I have no other practice than watch or guard my mind, the door of my mind, with the two spears, the spear of mindfulness and vigilance. He said, I have no other practice and job to do than guard my door of my mind with the two spears of mindfulness and vigilance. And when the delusions are more active, I will also be more alert. When delusions are less active, I can relax. But that is my job. And that is what he said, and that is how he actually did in all the time. And that is how he overcome his delusions and became a great master and great inspirations for the coming generations. You know, great master and great inspiring. And so that is in relation to the and then maybe we can well, I know the time. So maybe fourth verse, maybe let's see the fourth verse.
Verse 4, okay.
So the verse, you know, the fourth verse is training to training and transforming our mind and attitude to hold and feel, you know, generally in all sentient beings as a precious treasurer, you know, as we mentioned before in the first verses, you know, precious and precious treasures, so that we hold very dear, you know, dearly. But especially for those, especially training for those who are suffering a lot and those who are, you know, most unkind, most wicked, the worst sentient beings. And so that is, you know, so here, whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature, you know, so, you know, it could be due to someone can be very, you know, wicked in nature, in a sense, you know, someone too much, having too much of self-importance, sense of arrogance, you know, treating others, mistreating others, belittling others, you know, and so forth, you know, and that kind of nature, whether it is because of their past karma, you know, because of their past imprint, sometimes certain people because of their past imprint, so they have that kind of nature, you know. And sometimes, you know, because of the environment they grow in, because of the environment that they grow in, and then there is influence from that, and then they become such natural persons, you know, kind of little bit kind of unkind, you know, kind of belittling others, looking down on others, you know, too much egoistic mind, you know, and so forth, you know, that. And then, you know, in that nature and where they treat, you know, violently, you know, where to others, you know, so out of that, because of their such nature, you know, because they are short-tempered, maybe, you know, they are short tempers, you know, so, you know, they can easily lose their mind, you know, and they can easily become, you know, very aggressive, you know, verbally, mentally, and physically, you know. And sometimes we see that, isn't it? Sometimes we also become like that in a certain situations, not all the time. But then there are certain peoples who seem to be that in that very often, you know, very often. And sometimes you see among leaders, sometimes you see among ordinary beings as well, you know, who treat others very badly, you know, aggressive way, you know, bullying others, you know, abusing others, you know, trying to, you know, humiliate others, trying to put down others, you know, being harsh, so on, you know. And for such people, we find very hard to feel compassion for them, isn't it? We struggle to feel compassion for them. We struggle to feel compassion for them, you know. So that is one object here that we have to put more effort, because it doesn't come so easily. So therefore, because compassion for such people doesn't come easily, so we have to put more effort in that. And can I read the rest of the rest of that verses? Okay, so that is, who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by the violent negative actions. So that is one. And suffering, I shall hold them rare ones, dear as if I found a precious treasure. And then there are those who are suffering immensely, you know. And for those who are suffering most, we need to develop love, compassion, kind of care for them, because they are the most vulnerable ones. Because they are the most vulnerable ones. Those who are in most need, those who are most vulnerable, because there are so much pain and sufferings. And they require more attentions. They require more attentions, more love, more compassion, more caring. Why? Because they are the most vulnerable ones. They are the most who are experiencing most pain, most suffering. And so there are two different objects, you see, of our more attention, more love, more compassion. For both of them, we need to cultivate more sense of caring, love, and compassion. And in order to feel that kind of love and compassion and caring, first we need to hold them as very rare and dear, and as though we have found precious treasure. If we have found precious treasure, we will be so, you know, we will hold it so dearly, isn't it? Mm. If you find a precious treasure under your house, you will hold that your land so dear, you know, so dear. You hold that so dear, so much to your heart, you know. You will cherish it so much. You will cherish so much. You will hold so dear. And so, you know, same way, through that understanding, then we try to cherish all sentient beings, especially those who are violent and wicked in nature, and those who are most vulnerable in that, putting more effort, more conscious effort towards those beings. By holding them, cherishing them, holding them dear, you know. And again, you know, by understanding that because, you know, someone who seems to be, wicked in nature, someone who seems to be violent and very aggressive, by understanding, how much suffering they might be going through. The more you have pain, the more you become aggressive. The less pain you have, the more gentle you are and less aggressive you are. You can check with ourselves. When we do become aggressive, when you are in difficult situations, we tend to become more aggressive. We tend to become more kind when everything is going fine and everything's fine and we're happy in our life. We tend to become more kind, more compassionate when things are easy, our life is easy. We tend to become more aggressive when our life becomes difficult, challenging. That is our experience. And if you also look at the animals seem to attack the human beings or others, especially human beings, when they are fearful. When they are not fearful, they don't seem to attack. When they are fearful, because they think that you might be, hurting their children, the babies, or you might be hurting themselves or something like that, then they tend to become more aggressive. That is very natural. You can see in animal, and that is also human beings. And so when someone is very aggressive, that means that person is not really having a lot of challenge, whether we see or not outside, but inside, so many things are emotionally, so much things are going in their life. That means that person is suffering a lot emotionally, mentally. So with that understanding, maybe, then we try to see their pain, feel their pain, even though we don't agree with such a behavior, aggressive behavior, a violent behavior, but at the same time, we can see as a person, that person is suffering so much. That person is so much in pain. So then we can feel a little bit of compassion for that person. Maybe our heart will start to open a little bit to feel little compassion for that person. Once you understand, once you feel that. While we take every action to stop such violent and aggressive behavior, at the same time, without having an ill will feeling and bad feeling, but actually with a little bit of compassion. But actually with a little bit of compassion. No. So by thinking that way, that person is acting that way because he or she is totally overwhelmed by their own afflictive emotions, delusions. That is why he or she is acting that way. That is why she or she is having that kind of attitude and that kind of behavior, because he or she is totally overwhelmed by one of those afflictive emotions. So again, when you are able to understand, when you are able to see it again, we started to open our mind, heart a little bit to feel compassion for that person. And that is the key. That is the key. That is the key. And we have to put more effort for such person, because it doesn't come so easily. It doesn't come easily. So we have to emphasize and put more effort to open our heart, open our mind, and feel a little bit of compassion for such people. And then, for those who are most vulnerable, who are most suffering, of course, it is a little bit more easy for us to feel compassion if we understand their situations, and if we understand and feel their pain and their sufferings, definitely it will be a little bit easy. But at the same time, because they are the most vulnerable, most suffering, they require more love, more compassion, more care. And to be able to feel that, then, we try to hold, them as precious, because both of them allow us to feel compassion. Both of them allow us to practice the Dharma. Both of them give opportunity to practice the Dharma, isn't it? Those difficult people give us opportunity to practice the Dharma, as well as most vulnerable ones give us opportunity to practice the Dharma. Most vulnerable ones, it gives us opportunity to practice generosity, to practice loving kindness, compassion. And most difficult people give us opportunity to practice the Dharma, to learn forgiveness, to learn to be forgiveness. Give us opportunity to practice the Dharma, to understand them as a human beings, as a sentient beings. To have deeper understanding, not just their actions, but going beyond that action and understanding that as another human beings, suffering human beings, another suffering sentient beings. It gives us opportunity to see that. And through that, it really gives us opportunity to practice understanding them better on deeper level in that way, going just beyond their behavior and actions, but going beyond that and more further and more deeper, to have that deeper understanding and the practice of forgiveness, patience, loving kindness, compassion. So therefore, because they provide us such an opportunity in relation to practice our Dharma, so they are like a treasure, precious treasure that help and benefit. The treasure, precious treasure can solve a lot of our shortcomings, of our external shortcomings, whereas this treasure help us to overcome a lot of those internal shortcomings, help us to overcome internal shortcomings, such as, anger, unforgiveness, resentments, and so forth, all those things. So therefore, so I think maybe I will have to stop here at the moment. So what is the time?
It's just 11:05 here. So if
we can have 5 minutes break,
yep.
And then we can come. Yeah, since we went through 3 verses, but I don't know which verses to kind of reflect, contemplate. Maybe we can do the second verses as well. So maybe, okay. And I think maybe again. Okay, so try to make yourself comfortable and relax as much as you can. And keep your mind on the breath, watching the breath mindfully. Then we can generate good intention by thinking, may this contemplation, meditation become cause and conditions to reduce our sense of arrogant, self-important, and egoistic mind. And may it become cause and conditions to practice humility and humbleness. From where loving kindness, compassion, bodhisattva mind can grow. So then we can think, contemplate and think, if you hold someone more superior than yourself, someone you have high respect, whom you have hold very highly, regard very highly, and superior than yourself, if they point your weakness, your problem, your mistake, we don't get hurt so much. Instead, we appreciate their advice, their suggestions, positive suggestion, opinion. We feel appreciative, grateful to point our mistakes so that we can grow, we can learn. And you can think of any situation that you have experienced in the past where you felt that way in relation to someone. On the other hand, someone we regard less than us, someone we regard and look down upon them, feel like they are stupid, ignorant. Someone we don't have respect, regard highly. If they point out our same mistake, if they point out, if they try to give advice, suggestions, and point those, our weakness, our problem, our mistake, how will we feel and how will we respond? You can see that we will not take it easy, we will not take the good way. How dare you try to say that when I know better than you? You know nothing about it. That's how we feel it. We don't feel that he or she is giving good advice, suggestion, helping us. But instead we feel they are trying to criticize us, look us bad, feel like they are putting us down. When we feel hurt, upset, so there is no sense of gratitude, there is no sense of appreciation. Instead, feeling of hurt, upset, and anger. And you can think of particular situation in your life that has happened in the past where you felt that way. When someone's trying to point and we become very defensive. And when we become very defensive, then we start to become aggressive, offensive. So try to understand that with your own experience that has happened in the past. So it's very clear, even though both of them are pointing to our mistake, our shortcoming, our weakness. But we felt very differently and respond very differently. One, we felt very good, very appreciative, grateful, gratitude. And we respond with that feeling of gratitude, appreciative, thankful. On the others, we felt hurt, someone attacking us. Upset, anger. So we responded with such feeling of anger, upset, defensive, offensive. Why is that we respond so differently in that way for same thing? It's clear because with one, we regard them very highly, we have very high regard, we have very much respect, we hold them very supreme as someone who knows better than us. And to the others, we feel and respond that way because we don't have same level of respect. We don't regard them highly. Instead, we regard them very poorly. Instead, we have disrespect. And we hold them because they are less than us. So we can't take it when they say things, those things, when they point those things. And when we feel and respond positively in that way, we feel good about ourselves. Our mind is peaceful, calm, happy. And the response we have also make the others also appreciative, happy, peaceful. On the other hand, when we feel that way, definitely our mind is very much disturbed, unhappy, not peaceful, not calm at all. And the response that comes from that state of mind is also offensive, aggressive. That hurts the other person's feeling. That brings pain to the other person. That disturb other person's peaceful mind, calm mind. That being the case, for our own peace, for the peace of others, for the happiness of ourselves, for the happiness of others, we need to practice and train as much as possible to cultivate high regard, respect, and hold others supremely. By focusing on their positive qualities. When we regard ourselves less, so it doesn't bother us when they treat us that way. So then we can bring our attention back to the breath. And we dedicate all our virtues to be able to cultivate sense of respect and holding others dear, supreme, precious. And to be able to cultivate the bodhicitta mind and wisdom realizing emptiness as soon as possible within our mind stream, all sentient beings' mind stream. As well as to achieve fully enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay, I think, and I wanted to, of course, we have very short time, and also, and sometimes because this second verse is very much misunderstood as well, and you don't see what the purpose of doing that. If we don't understand how by meditating, by changing that perspective, how it affects our own mind and others in that way, the way others treat us, and so I think if we understand with our own, by reflecting on our own experience, how we actually felt and how we respond in those two different by the two different, with pointing same mistake or all that, but just because of our how we regard to them in certain way, and so once then we begin to understand why, if we can practice this in relation to everyone, how it can have a very different experience and different attitude and our different response to others. So, okay. Any questions? I can take a couple of questions if there is.
Geshe, thank you so much. Your examples, especially the ones with the animals, really make it very easy to understand. I have just a really quick question. I'm mindful we'll probably run out of time, but when you were when you pointed out the two objects of the person who's really wicked in nature and the person who's suffering, when I'm faced with someone who's really angry or aggressive towards me, I just get frightened, and I find it really hard to remember that it's coming from suffering. So what's a good way that I can kind of remember that in the heat of the moment?
Well, I guess maybe we always have to remind that all the time, so we can remember at that time. A lot of things, we hear those teachings when we listen to the teachings, or maybe once a while, but we don't actually really reflect on that on every day, a lot of time. So when we need it in certain situation, we don't remember, we forget. But if we have been kind of reflecting, contemplating on that all the time, everyone is suffering, especially those who are aggressive and wicked and violent. They do that because they are suffering more. And by understanding with our own experience, because with my own experience, I tend to be more aggressive when things are not going right in my life, or in that day, that week, or your life. And I tend to be more peaceful, calm, and more kind when everything seems to be going well, so therefore something is disturbing their mind, and because there's something is disturbing their mind. And so that to be aware and understand that. And I think that probably if we try to be mindful of that particular, for example, if you are dealing with that issue, and if you want to deal with that issues, and particularly with that particular issue, then maybe that might be one of the things we'll try to remind and think about that all the time to time, even if it's just few minutes, and just so then we are that become fresh in our mind, and then we remember that very quickly because it's fresh in our mind all the times. And so yeah, that could be a wonderful way of doing it.
Okay. So thank you so much, Geshe. There wasn't any questions in the chat today, so we can finish with our mandala offering as a huge thank you to your incredibly clear and kind and timely teachings. Saji poki chushin meta tra rira blinjin yide gyampa sange jindu mite owa yi drokon amda jinla chopa shon. Jetsun lame kutse rabten chin nam kai trin le chochue gepa dang lo san tempe drome sasoim gi drowe musel tatu ne gyue chi idam gurana mandala kamni atayami. And we have a couple of the dedication prayers this time. I've got them prepared, Geshe.
Okay.
Lama sangye droy Trowai chi kyam lupan Dehi sala go pashon Chamchu sem chorim poche makye panam kye gyuchi kye wanyam pa me payan kone konto pelwashon. And our long life prayers. Gavirawe koe jinkan dear pendan dewa malu joene chenre ziguan tenzin gyatsoi shape site padu tengyu chi to so chan jim chan gyong gyawe tenzin kyong pelwe konzo do potem Choson ko wele mon tu dro pa da so du je gondu Thubten Sherab.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Geshe. Please take care. And we very much look forward to seeing you again, same time, same place next week.
Thank you, and have a wonderful weekend. Okay, thank you. Thank you.